You are listening to Trusting God at All Times, a daily devotion of Peakland United Methodist Church. My name is Kim Ness, and I'm the office manager here at Peakland. We all have our fears. When we're kids, our fears usually revolve around fearing the dark or large animals. As adults, we tend to fear adult problems, jobs, money, taking care of kids, illnesses. But all those fears take on a persona that's bigger than us. The darkness we see as kids is scary because it's so big and so vast. Those animals seem bigger than us because we are small. Adults fear those large money problems are too big to overcome or that illnesses are too big to recover from. We tend to make problems or fears bigger than they are. We forget who is bigger than our fears. Take David and Goliath. Let me set the stage for you. Goliath was a giant that was described as well over 9 feet tall and wielded a spear that weighed at least 15 pounds. Goliath challenged Saul and his army, and he said that he would fight anyone that wanted to fight him. If Goliath won, the Israelites would be the slaves of the Philistines. But if Saul's army won, the Philistines would become slaves of the Israelites. Goliath was like that big Rottweiler that lived up the street from you as a kid. You know the kind that barked anytime you walked past their house, thought the sidewalk in front of the house belonged to them, and just pretty much sounded angry all the time. Goliath taunted everyone in Saul's army, and because of his size and his loud voice, the entire Israelite army feared him. Saul wanted to be rid of Goliath, so he offered up all kinds of incentives. Things like, I'll give you the best land in the country. I'll give you vast riches. I'll make you the most powerful people in the country. And of course, there's my all-time favorite. You can marry my daughter. Enter David. David was a part-time shepherd. He helped his father with the herd of sheep, and he ran errands and delivered things to his brothers who were fighting with Saul's army. David was the kid who fought off lions and other animals to protect the sheep in his family's herd. David was kind of a legend. One day, David's father asked him to deliver cheese to his brothers on the battlefield. Now, not to go off topic, but this is one of only 3 or 4 times that cheese is actually mentioned in the Bible. While going to visit his brothers, he heard the taunting of this giant Goliath. Now, David thought it was amusing. He couldn't understand why this entire army, an army of God's chosen people, would be freaking out about one dude. He says to his brothers in 1 Samuel 17:26, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" Now, there is a tension between David and his brothers, who have become angry at him for leaving the sheep behind and coming to watch the battle, but refusing to participate. David basically says to him, "Excuse me, I'm not allowed to talk? Why are you letting this guy torment you like this? You're scared just because he's bigger than you?" David's brothers thought he was a little bit full of it, and they stood there arguing with him for some time. Eventually, someone ran and told Saul what David was saying. Now, Saul asked to see David, and he told him, "You're a kid. Stop telling everybody what to do." Now, if I were David, I would have been mad. Not because Saul was telling David he was just a kid or that David should sit down and shut up, but because the king wasn't willing to fight the giant himself. He was offering up his daughter and all kinds of other things as prizes to anyone who could beat the giant, but he wouldn't do it for himself. He was relying on others to save him. David took the challenge and refused the offer of Saul's armor because David knew that God was in charge. If God wanted David to defeat Goliath, he would help him do it. Now, when David approached Goliath, Goliath sees this little kid with his rocks and his slingshot, and he starts laughing at him. He teased David. Goliath even asked David if he thought Goliath was a dog because he was coming after him with toys. Goliath mocked David on the battlefield, and David stood there and took the torment. When Goliath was done, David said he would prove that the Lord was his God, and the Lord would help David defeat Goliath without having to use swords or javelins to beat the giant. David wasn't afraid of Goliath. David knew God. He trusted God, so he had no fear. David stood in front of Goliath with all the giant's weapons and size and proceeded to defeat him with one sure shot of his sling. Goliath fell. David used the giant's sword and finished off the battle. This isn't a story of conquering fear because David wasn't afraid. It's a story of defending a belief in God. It's not that David was afraid to fight. He wasn't. David wasn't afraid because he had God on his side. So if we're willing to defend God's presence in our lives and to trust Him, we will be given the victory over our own Goliaths, no matter our fear.